Good afternoon. My name is Akisa Wandera. A sign language interpreter is Meresha Owiti. Now, the search for the anti-graft boss has started in earnest today, with candidates appearing before the selection team. For this top challenging job was former Permanent Secretary Philemon Mwaisaka. 6 candidates were shortlisted for this position. Let's now join our reporter, senior reporter Rita Tinina, who is joining us from our city center studios for more details on this particular process. Good afternoon, Rita. The process kick-started today. How would you describe it?
Well, first of all, Akisa, this is another phase of the search for the EACC chair after advertisements that is calling for applications, getting those applications, shortlisting. Today, they are conducting the interviews, the Public Service Commission conducting interviews of the 6 candidates who were shortlisted. This is an exercise that is not open to the press, but according to a program that they had released earlier on their website, the Public Service Commission should by now have interviewed 3 people, William Kipkemboy Kirwa, Philemon Mwaisaka, and Archbishop, former retired Anglican Archbishop Eliud Wabukala. In the afternoon, Peter Bita Ondieki, Ross Bosiborio Soro, and Erastus Reria are scheduled to appear before the Public Service Commission to defend their suitability for the position. And during these interviews, you describe them as brief. Each candidate has just 1 hour and 15 minutes before the Public Service Commission. And since the sessions are close to the media, the Public Service Commission has said that it will brief the press later on in the afternoon around 4 p.m. When it is done with interviewing all the 6 shortlisted candidates. Akisa.
Now, Rita, we have seen positions like this when interviews are being held. They are usually held in public. Most of them are usually live. Why is this particular one different?
Well, the Public Service Commission has not given any reason for that. Actually, most media houses sent their representatives, sent their journalists there, hoping to cover the interviews, but they were turned away, told that the interviews will not be open to the press. In their website, they had indicated that any members of the public who had any submissions to make on the candidates, the 6 candidates, they were allowed to present those submissions before the interviews began. That is before today. We are not quite sure yet how many people or what kind of submissions were given by members of the public. And during these interviews this morning, as they appeared before the Public Service Commission, the candidates were required to carry several things, including their national identity cards, academic and professional certificates, as well as clearance letters from the Kenya Revenue Authority, the Higher Education Loans Board, as well as the Directorate of Criminal Investigations. Akisa.
Rita, thank you very much for that. That's our senior reporter, Rita Tinina, joining us from our city center studios. And as she says, the interviews were not made public, but we are expecting a press briefing from the selection team later on in the day. And here is where we will bring it to you live and give you more details about what exactly was said. But even as the search for the next boss for the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission continues, let's just take a look at the past people who have held this particular position of the EACC boss. And the most recent, of course, was Philip Kinisu, who held office for barely 6 months from December 2015 to August 31st after he was hounded out of office for allegations of graft, and most of it emanated from the NYS scandal. And before Philip Kinisu, let's see who we had previously before Kinisu came into office. Mumo Matemu from May 2012 to May 2015, about 3 years. He was hounded out of his office together with his vice chairperson. They opted to resign. And of course, this was also based on integrity issues, and which seemingly is the reason most of the bosses leave office even before their terms are complete. Well, before Mumo Matemu, we also had the PLO Lumumba, Patrick Lumumba, from September 2010 to August 24th, 2011. Same issues were raised, and the National Assembly as well had its word that he should vacate office after his work. But he is known to be among the toughest of those who held this particular position since it was formed. Previously, it used to be the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission, CAS, but now it's the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission. But PLO Lumumba is one of those who served as the boss of the Ethics and Anti-Corruption Commission and was hounded voted out of office by the status quo, so to speak. But let's take a look at who we had. Before PLO Lumumba, we had Aaron Ringera from March 1999 to 2000. This is just before the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission became the EACC. Aaron Ringera served this particular commission when it was the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission from March 1999 to December 2000. All right, let's go on next to see who came in previously. John Haron Mwao, who was the director of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission from 1997 to 1998. And this is not a stranger to the public eye. He also served in that particular that particular office as the boss of the Kenya Anti-Corruption Commission. Of course, those are the previous men who've held this particular position. Notice that there's no woman who has held that particular position, so probably this time round we would have a change. But as the interviews continue, we'll definitely be keeping you up to speed with the developments from that end. But away from that, Education Cabinet Secretary Dr. Fred Matiang'i has said that exam monitoring will continue up to marking and will not cease after the exams are over. He was speaking in Nyeri County when he supervised the opening of the containers with exam papers at Wamagana in Tetu at 5:30 a.m. He later proceeded to supervise the ongoing examinations at Nyeri High School and Our Lady of Lords High School in Mwega. Later, he proceeded to the Kagumo Teachers Training College for a fundraiser. Matiang'i said that the 2016 KCSE exams, which are 75% underway, have not been leaked, and was emphatic that they will not leak as vigilant measures have been put up by the stakeholders.
We are about 75% or so done with the KCSE. The exam has been credible. And I want to tell you this because the buck stops here. I take responsibility in the Ministry of Education. 2016 exam has not leaked and will not. There is no room for jokes this time, because we must make sure that our children get the grades that the Lord will enable them to get. Honest, genuine, credible grades.
Now, the African Union Special Representative for Somalia and head of the AU mission in Somalia, Ambassador Francisco Madeira, has asked African Union states with troops in Somalia to desist from leveraging the troops in order to gain political ambitions. Speaking earlier on this morning, Madeira also sought to address the issue of refugee repatriation from the Dadaab camp, saying it was a sovereign decision of an AU member state that has to be respected. He, however, gave the assurance that AMISOM takes the responsibility of protecting said refugees like it does the locals.
There is a voluntary appeal for people to leave the camp. Well, some are saying, well, it's not as voluntary as it means, as it is said. Well, I have no way to ascertain that. What I can tell you is that once these refugees arrive in our area of responsibility in Somalia, we do take care of them. We do take care of them. We protect them the way we protect all other Somalis. It serves no purpose for people to want to politicize the stipends paid to our soldiers. It serves no purpose to try to use AMISOM troops in Somalia as a bargaining chip to obtain political concessions or political compliance by a member state. There must be a separation. Please, 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 leave our troops alone. We're already facing a lot of difficulties. Don't add on more. Find other alternatives, other ways of going about pressure that you may wish to put on any member state for non-compliance of the required democratic principles and transparency.
Let's now head over to the August House. Members of the National Assembly are this afternoon expected to vote on a bill to implement the two-thirds gender rule after debate on the second reading ended yesterday. The constitutional bill that was introduced by Chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Samuel Chapkonga, seeks to make the implementation of the gender parity law progressive. The bill will require support from two-thirds of members of the National Assembly to go to the next stage. All right, let's now speak to our senior parliamentary reporter, Patrick Amimo, on some of the things we should expect in the afternoon in the August House. A very good afternoon. Patrick, what do you foresee come about 2 p.m. or so?
Thank you, Akisa. Indeed, this is not the first time that Parliament is trying to discuss this gender bill. Remember, the constitutional provisions did indicate that such law was to be in place 5 years after implementation of the 2010 Constitution, which year was to be August 27th, 2015. But the National Assembly or Parliament failed, both the Senate and National Assembly failed to pass that law in that time given. And they sought for a one-year extension, which was to end on 27th August 2016. In the year 2016, we saw Leader of Majority in the National Assembly, Aden Duale, introduce a bill that was to ensure that at least not more than two-thirds of members in elective posts in Parliament are of the same gender. But in May, we saw members of the National Assembly defy the leader of Jubilee, who is President Uhuru Kenyatta, together with the opposition leader Raila Odinga, who was in the House on that particular day of May this year, when they rejected that particular bill. There was a second attempt to introduce the bill in August 2016. Again, the move flopped because it could not garner the requisite number, because it's a constitutional bill which requires support from 233 members of Parliament out of the 349 member House, but they could not raise that quorum. The 233 members could not support it to enable the bill sail through. So after that, August, there was also an attempt in the Senate by Senator Sijenyi to also introduce a gender bill in the Senate. Again, she could not marshal the necessary quorum in the Senate, which is composed of 69 members of Parliament. So that attempt flopped. And that's why we see the chairperson of the Justice and Legal Affairs Committee, Samuel Chapkonga, now introduce this particular bill, which seeks to ensure that this gender rule, the two-third gender rule, is implemented progressively. Because according to him, he says that the Supreme Court did give an interpretation that said the gender parity laws should be realized progressively, and it was not to be a fixed 5-year term, as some have argued that by 2015 these laws should have been in place. So it's something that is a push and pull factor, and we've seen that even in the National Assembly at times, women legislators have been accused of not attending the House to support the passage of this particular bill. So it's a matter that we'll be looking with a keen interest to see whether Parliament or the National Assembly will marshal the required support, two-thirds, to pass this particular bill for the third reading stage. Akisa?
Patrick, thank you. That's our senior parliamentary reporter, Patrick Amimo. And as he says, it is a matter of push and pull, and we will be looking to see whether it will be any different as far as the numbers are concerned at the National Assembly this afternoon. Now, government spokesperson Eric Kirathe says the drought situation in the country will last till November 2017 as the country awaits the next long rains. One person has been confirmed dead in Kilifi County as the government allocates an additional 5.8 billion shillings towards food relief.
The drought will persist into 2017, and the effects will go all the way to around September, October. What you need to understand is that once the drought has been there and the effects are there, we must wait for the next long rains for the situation to normalize. For purposes of intervention, the government has divided the areas into 3 levels. There is alert, alarm, and emergency. There are a few other normal areas which are under observation. So far, only Kilifi, that is specifically the livestock ranching zone, has been classified as an emergency. Areas which are alarming, the situation is alarming, include Garissa, Kwale, Lamu, Marsabit, and those other areas of Kilifi. The areas which the government has placed on alert include Kajiado, Laikipia, West Pokot, Isiolo, Makueni, Mandera, Meru North, Narok, Samburu, Taita Taveta, Turkana, Wajir, and parts of Tharaka Nithi.